Susan Rice, President Barack Obama's national security advisor, came out swinging against charges that she identified or unmasked Trump associates caught up in the collection of electronic surveillance of foreigners. It was Rice's first public response to the Trump administration's efforts to focus attention away from the drip, drip, drip of revelations tying Trump officials to Russia and instead blame the exploding scandal on the Obama administration.
The allegation is that somehow Obama administration officials utilized intelligence for political purposes. That's absolutely false. Let me explain how this works. I was a national security advisor. My job is to protect the American people and the security of our country. That's the same as the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the CIA director. And there were occasions when I would receive a report in which a U.S. person was referred to, name not provided, just U.S. person. And sometimes in that context, in order to understand the importance of the report and assess its significance, it was necessary to find out or request the information as to who that U.S. official was.
Yesterday morning, President Trump retweeted a story from a conservative website whose headline read, "Rice ordered spy docs on Trump." The story alleged the information was then shared with other agencies.
The notion that, which some people are trying to suggest, that by asking for the identity of an American person, that is the same as leaking it, is completely false. There's no equivalence between so-called unmasking and leaking.
Several Republican senators jumped on the Trump bandwagon, calling for Rice to testify under oath, including Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who called the new reports a smoking gun.
I believe Susan Rice abused this system, and she did it for political purposes. She needs to be brought in and questioned under oath.
Okay, you believe that.
Ask her under oath.
And I'm not defending Susan Rice. I'm not at all.
Ask her whether President Obama ordered this or whether he knew about it. That is a big deal if the outgoing administration was actually literally sifting through things.
Joining us to discuss this is Robert Deitz, the former National Security Agency General Counsel. And I meant to say National Security Council, correct?
National Security Agency.
Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So help us sort all of this out.
Sure. U.S. persons are from time to time incidentally picked up in conversations. Everybody knows that. When the NSA analyzes or FBI analyzes these intercepts, there's an obligation under federal rules that U.S. person identities be so-called minimized. And that means their names, their positions, and so forth, identifying information is kept out of the report. However, senior officials who think that they need the names of those folks can obtain that information under two circumstances. One, if you need to know the identity in order to make sense of the intelligence.
Which is what Susan Rice said yesterday. She needed to just know who it was.
Right. And second, if there's evidence that a crime's been committed. Mm-hmm. I, of course, have no idea what information Ms. Rice asked for, but the fact that she asked for it in no sense on its face suggests wrongdoing. Senior officials do this all the time. And the question is simply, can you make sense of this intelligence without knowing the identity of the U.S. person?
So then why the leap by, for example, Senator Rand Paul or President Trump to say that she has, committed some sort of a crime?
Beats me.
Sounds like subterfuge to me. Let me bring the panel in. I mean, what do you all think? I watched the testimony yesterday. All Republicans, I'm hoping Reynard doesn't fall in that group, but seem to really have a hankering for Susan Rice. It was Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Now it's this. I watched her interview with Andrea Mitchell over on MSNBC yesterday and found her, what she said to be incredibly important in understanding the context within which she asked for someone's name, and she didn't unmask anyone.
Well,
is it subterfuge?
Well, they have different reasons. I mean, the Republicans, Randy Paul, the junior senator from Kentucky, is remaining true to his libertarian roots. He didn't like surveillance of any kind, and we can kind of discount him. The fact that he's using the language ordered shows that he clearly doesn't understand it. We just heard Director Deitz talk about this. She can only make a request, and under the Bush administration and the Obama administrations, they've been frequently denied these requests. Obama can't order anything. That's Randy Paul. As for for Trump, you know, they've got to continue to play this shell game, because increasingly as this investigation unfolds, it's going to be more and more difficult for them to hide. I mean, all this collusion with Russia, we go back to Jeff Sessions. He hasn't explained his meetings, so I think it's different reasons there.
So Spencer, does it look to you like this is, you know, subterfuge again? Let's, you know, so the press headlines are getting difficult. Let's punt and get our Republican base fired up. We'll use Susan Rice's name.
Yeah, I mean, it is a distraction from the big issue in terms of this Russia investigation. And if you can muddy the waters, if you see with your eyes this African American being shot, for example, and then you got to muddy it up with Blue Lives Matter, oh, here's the different perspective, or climate change or whatever. This is really just an attempt to change a narrative and muddy the water. So, oh, you could see it on this side or this side here, as opposed to focusing on the Russia issue. And let me also just say, Susan Rice, she is Black excellence personified.
Absolutely.
You have these really strong people like, you know, Eric Holder, like Susan Rice, and frankly, folks are uncomfortable with incredibly qualified, strong, and competent Black folks who really just don't back down.
Well, and you know, and not to mention, I think it's important to mention, if we look at at least the appearance of what the administration feels about women and the number of women at high-level positions in the Trump administration, it's no surprise that they would attack Susan Rice. She's a strong Black woman. I found what she said on MSNBC to be incredibly
I think she's
credible.
running into a problem with optics. She's asking for all this demasking in the middle of a presidential campaign. Optically, that looks bad, number one. Then number two, why would she go on PBS 2 weeks ago and say she knew nothing about it, and then all of a sudden she got all these requests under her signature to demand? That's the issue with it, in my view. All the other stuff is background noise. Why she lied on TV, that's what I want.
I don't think she lied, but Mr. Deitz.
Yeah, there are two issues that I think have been conflated, and I think it's important to separate them. One is her request for the information, which, for all I know, is perfectly legitimate. I don't know the facts of the case.
And it's a request, not an order.
Of course, and it goes through it. In the case of NSA, it would go to the General Counsel's office. I used to see these, and depending on what I saw, I might go to the director and say, you know, this looks a little squirrely. You know, a request comes in, the person says, I want this just because I'm curious. You say, no, I'm sorry.
So that's important. I didn't hear that before when we spoke earlier. So she would make the request, or someone would make the request to the General Counsel's office, and then the General Counsel's office decides whether or not to approve the request.
Yes.
So she didn't just, you know, get this name on her own. That's an important distinction.
But the conflation I'm talking about is between asking to obtain the identity, but then the further accusation, as I understand it, is that she then leaked that to the press.
Well, that's what they're alleging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Those are two very different things. The one is utterly legitimate if it's done for legitimate purposes. The other's not.
Yes.
So that's why I think it's important to parse those two things.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old Black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that Black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.